Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to another Pathfinder log. So, where did we leave off last time? Our heroes, Makoto and Wisdom, David's character, were back in the main town. We'd completed a test of our skills by the, what's it called? The Explorers of F. And that was all well and good. We'd acquired a decent amount of wealth, and at the beginning of Sunday night's activities, we found ourselves spending a decent amount of it upgrading our gear. My armor class went up a little bit, but not a whole lot, and it is pretty ridiculous for my character. David got some things that were going to help him out too, and I had another enchantment put on my main weapon to make it just a bit more deadly. Moving forward, we heard rumors of were-rat activity around the docks, so David and I set to work scheming to figure out how we would flush out these creatures. Of course, we first set off for a little bit of footwork with Wisdom and Makoto investigating down on the streets the stories of what was going on. In the process, before I get to that point, I should also note that my consummate cat companion, Sergeant Whiskers, who has proved himself so loyal and useful, what would I say? An example to us all, but definitely a helping hand to my character, is showing some strange changes. The area around his paws, his little soft pity patters, I think it's called for cat anatomy, is showing signs of turning gold. I don't think it's like metallic gold, but a golden hue. Curious. Seems like the plot is thickening with regard to Sergeant Whiskers. Could he be more than just an extremely helpful feline companion? I guess we'll find out. Yet another of the party pets to be set aside is the hunting cat, the leopard, that I purchased a while back. He's sort of in over his head in most combats now, so I left him at home, and Makoto and Wisdom go out for a day on the town investigating signs of were-rat activity. Before too long, in fact, the two of us missed it, but Sergeant Whiskers noticed a man behaving strangely, seeming to be pursued, getting my attention with a quick bap bap of his golden paw. I pointed out the suspicious looking individual down by the docks, and David's character recognized the man as someone that he went to whatever Templar BS holy guy, let's go oppress someone's school that Wisdom used to be part of. I can't be bothered to give those people the respect of a proper identification. They're like wannabe paladins, and it's just a little bit too organized for me. I know, ironic, coming from the Chosen One, but remember, Chosen One of cats. So, at this point, I should mention that talking about this session with Sam, he said that David and I have a tendency to break modules, so he builds an outline and then he just kind of goes with what we're doing, which is exactly what I would recommend because we do some pretty ridiculous stuff. Now, this was a pretty typical investigate the guy behaving strangely encounter, and we catch up to him. I make friends with him through magical means by wiggling my charm person tail. I know! I'm finally using these abilities that I've dumped feats into. And he basically just lets us know that he's very frightened. he got involved in something that's way over his head. He spots somebody, he takes off, we go to chase after him, and in a secluded alley, I sight him being accosted by two robed figures. I know, sounds like plot, doesn't it? Sounds like I've witnessed a cinematic. They reach out, and he turns to a puddle of goo, and then mysteriously vanish. I'm left with a liquefied acquaintance and what remains of his corpse. The city guard approach and investigate the situation. We don't hide anything from him. We say that I just met the guy, and he was an acquaintance of David's character's. The man had melted into a puddle of goo, and there was a disgusting, vile phial, if you will, of something that used to contain, apparently, a rather nasty substance. The plot thickens. So, that is pretty much where that encounter is left off until things pick up with further investigation of the, I want to call them Skaven, but they're were-rats. So, David and I start plotting, and I'm always the first person to come up with a ridiculous plan. And that's exactly what I did. You see, I have many magical tales as a kitsune who is dumping all of his feats into growing magical tales instead of actually useful combat abilities. I mean, come on. If I can't lean on my status as a chosen one of cats in combat, what can I lean on? So, I have a tale that can cast Disguise Self. I can assume the appearance of a given humanoid. Were-rats are humanoids. And since I'm a shape changer, this should come pretty naturally to me. So my plan? To convince the were-rats that I am a fellow were-rat. In fact, a rather cultured and well-connected one, and one that might be helpful in assisting them to infiltrate the city, which is, of course, their goal. To that end, we purchased 200 golds worth of aromatic cheeses. That's right, smelly cheese in a big old crate should get the attention of some skulkers. If nothing else, they'll smell it. So, after all the planning and then a little bit of dealing with some things that I'll talk about later, basically just stumbling over some more plot hooks and getting them well embedded in our flesh, we set up our little, would you call it an ambush? Let's call it an ambush. A diplomatic ambush, if you will. So I set myself up, sitting on a crate of aromatic cheeses, waiting for the were-rats to appear. Luckily, they did. Turns out they noticed things like a crate full of smelly cheese. And as I'm snacking on a wheel, they approach. They say, "Give us the cheese and go." Of course, as soon as I know that they are getting close, I reveal myself by casting Disguise Self and take on the disguise of a were-rat in its semi-human form, I should say. I try to convince them that I'm one of them, but I kind of rolled a 1. So I did a really bad job. They were not convinced that I was one of them, but Sam decided, as he's building this world, that there's going to be, certain interesting quirks that can set this aside from your typical Pathfinder setting. And this is sort of Sam's world that he's building as we work our way through the story. It's not the Pathfinder world that we sort of started in. And I know Sam has big visions of where this is going, but for now, Let's talk about one small detail. Sam decided there would be a 1 in 4 chance that were-rats would be obsessed with cheese. He let me roll the d4. Were-rats are obsessed with cheese in this world, so even though they know that I am not who I say I am, and it's probably a trick, they also want me to hand over the cheese. So I'm sitting on a crate of roughly 200 pounds of cheese, 150, something like that. I say, okay, it's clear that they're not here to bargain with us. They're not going to take me to their leader and invite me to the cult. I know. I'm such a good cultist, but they won't have any of it. I guess something smells off about me. More like kitty cat, less like ritty rat. Anyway, the jig is up, but we can still hand over some cheese, and so we do. I turn to Wisdom and I say, alright, let's hand over the cheese and definitely not throw it in their face. So we approach, there's 6 of them in 2x2x2, and David's character and I heft this crate and then throw it right into their face. The first 2 get knocked down and knocked unconscious by the crate that we toss at them, which is a great way to start combat. In any event, their obsession with cheese caused a crushing defeat for them. In the next rank of enemies stand 2 rather intimidated were-rats who weren't expecting to be in combat so soon, I suppose. David's character and mine quickly dispatch of 2 of them, and the remaining 2 bolt. The 2 of us tackle one of them, and he wasn't very useful to us. He was kind of not the smart one, a feral-minded individual, if you will, more rat than were. And, I mean, he just kind of stood there pissing himself, so we didn't deal with him anymore. And then the leader of the group who we'd knocked out with the crate, I brought back to consciousness. He wasn't willing to play ball, so we dealt with him. And that's sort of where we left it. We tried tracking the were-rats back toward their lair, but we were clearly frustrated in that instance, although Sergeant Whiskers, again coming through for me as my faithful friend, more of a mentor than a companion, and certainly no one's pet, was acting as the ranger for our party, because as a common house cat, to all intents and purposes, he has the ability to smell things, and he was able to sniff out where those were-rats were coming from. The issue is they were coming from all over the sewers. We did a little bit of looking around, and they'd just been everywhere around there. We weren't going to be led to their hideout anytime soon. So that's pretty much it for the combat in that session. We completely wrecked a scouting group. I don't know. They weren't equipped with any sort of special gear. They didn't have anything on them that would be incriminating. It looked like they were just there to try and infiltrate the city. Maybe to scout things out, maybe to rummage for supplies. There seems to be a rather significant were-rat population attempting to infiltrate the city, which is something that we'll get into later. And so maybe they were just out gathering supplies. Who's to say? Or finding more targets to target? More easy marks in town, if you will. Anyway, we had previously, and this is something I skipped over, we'd talked with a suspicious-looking beggar who was more than he appeared, much more equipped as an adventurer than a panhandler. And after introducing myself in a rather, well, undiplomatic manner that might not have been respective of his position as a vagrant, purely by no ill intent of my own, but just out of honesty, I managed to salvage the situation at the cost of a gold coin. We got to talking, and he went to go ask, who is this man? The Beggar King? The Vagrant Lord? A mysterious figure in his own right? A man who seems to be in charge of an entire section of the city that is kept separate from the rest of the common rabble. Odd, since again, this is a kingdom of vagrants. My first thought is, these are spies. And you know what? I'm pretty sure they're spies. Anyway, we go talk to the Spy King, and he says that he will personally give us the mission to seek out the true source and deal with this were-rat infestation, and our reward will be commensurate with our participation. Truly, a kingly reward is what I am expecting. We're set up in quarters and ready for our next encounter, probably 2 weeks from now, the Sunday after next, when Sam and David and I can get together. So a lot of story building, a lot of world building. Let's see, we're gonna start dealing with, what did Sam say it was? The Order of Topaz and the Cult of Baruch. So, we will be seeing more of these things. It seems like something stinks in the Order of Topaz, and somebody appears to be using were-rats to perform clandestine, subversive activities in this city that we've been constantly in. As another side note, we turned in the quest to investigate the were-rats to the Adventurers Guild and picked up a little bit of gold. And that is pretty much setting us up for next time. The next few encounters are going to deepen the plot and see where it goes with this mysterious liquefaction disease. We got a little bit more information on that. It seems to be incurable through mundane or magical means. It shows up with indented red blotches on the skin, and eventually the person melts into a puddle of goo. My goodness, where's that going? Well, I guess we'll find out next time. Catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.